days the most because it was like Friday at the end of the day. It's the longest time until you have to
Yeah.
be back in, if you do the Monday through Friday.
Let's call to order the City Council Finance Committee meeting of Thursday, February 16th, 2023. We have two agenda items. The first is discussion regarding monthly revenue and expenditure reports. Mr. Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The monthly reports are in your packet. I would report, it's not reflected here, but the February sales tax and use tax remittances have come in. This reflects sales during December, and it continues to be flat from last year being a record month throughout the fiscal year. So flat is good. And we're continuing to monitor that, but just those returns are good. And if we can continue on this pace, then we should continue to build some fund balances, which is a healthy thing. Would remind council that having fund balances is not a bad thing. We would encourage you to continue to where you want to appropriate some of those fund balances, that you do so for one-time expenditures as opposed to ongoing expenditures as we move into next fiscal year's budget. But it's a healthy trend, and so we're continuing to be encouraged by that.
And this is as optimistic as Mr. Francisco.
That's as good as it gets. That's as good as it gets. I'll be glad to respond to any questions that you may have.
I was trying, and this is just, I guess, a statistical question. When I compare this, if I compare our change, our delta in sales tax per month to another city, it seems like that's not really equating that accurately because different cities are different size and have different kinds of retail.
On a percentage basis, though, it is a valid comparison.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can just run straight ways with that, and if Edmund gets 10 and we get 11, we're doing better than that.
That's correct.
Correct.
And there is a report that comes in from, and I think it comes in directly from the state, Anthony, that shows all the cities.
Yes, and we track that on a monthly basis. That's in your packet.
So, yeah.
It's,
And that, it really, we do take a peek at what our neighboring agencies are doing just to see if there's trends happening. And a lot of times, if you start seeing movement, you can kind of equate that to a project specifically in one of those other communities that we're aware of. But yeah, our student population definitely impacts our sales tax timing a little differently than other cities.
Well, and that's a
Yeah,
question.
and I would say that a smaller city, like a Noble, for example, one store opening or closing would have an impact on that percentage change. It really wouldn't for us. But if you're comparing Norman to Oklahoma City or Tulsa or Broken Arrow, it's a valid comparison because one store doesn't move the needle for us that much.
Okay, well, thank you, because it's a question that I'm asked, Moore's doing this, or somebody else is doing this, Newcastle's doing this. How do we compare to that? I've got it right here.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, like Anthony was saying, last year we were like number one almost every month, and sometimes way ahead of Moore and Oklahoma City and Edmond and the state as a whole. And now we're kind of tracking towards the lower end. But those cities are now, we're comparing this year's month to month to last year's record high month to month. And I think some of these other cities, they're now seeing
Some really good.
comparisons to, they weren't as high and they're seeing higher. So it can be kind of difficult to see exactly when you're looking at it over multiple years how it compares like that, for sure. And I don't know if I guess I sent it to everybody about the Bed Bath & Beyond, Moore and Norman, and I guess both in Tulsa, but they're going to keep two in OKC, I guess. But that's like the same thing, like when some of those national chains like Sears or Toys R Us, this one, I don't know how much revenue that one store in Norman brings in, but it's a pretty decent sized big box. And so, and then what to repurpose a space of that size with after. And so, and those things being kind of people are beating the drum about local businesses, it's, those can close too, but little control over these national chains. Like, I don't know why Bed Bath, like you said, it seems to be busy, right?
And it could be Seattle or
Yeah,
Cincinnati.
anything.
Drinks it.
I saw a thing about like Buffalo Wild Wings might not be around anymore after this year, like as a company, and I was like, every time I drive by the one in Norman and the one in Moore, it's like nowhere to park.
On chicken, you would think we could
I know, and
support
it's gotten
that.
more expensive. They were citing like, inflation of products and stuff, but it was like people are still going and filling the whole place up.
And
So-
of course, now what we didn't have available to us when Sears, closed up shop, we are seeing retailers that step out of the brick and mortar store space and go 100% online, and you just try to figure out, well, how much overhead do they save versus how much of that sales market can they continue to capture just online? So job loss is a real thing. It'll be interesting to see if they maintain an online presence only, and now we do get that use tax coming in off the online sales. So a little different environment now that we've got that new legislation to support the.
I was
sales
looking
tax
around to
options.
see if Sarah Kaplan was here because she does keep a very close monitoring on that sort of thing. Bath and Beyond in particular is on Ed Noble Parkway and who might move into that space. She is monitoring it's not really a retailer, but it's an entertainment business that might move into the Sears space in Sooner Mall. So again, and of course, we can't name names, but she is keeping a close monitoring on that.
It's a group out of Dallas that is in the expansion mode, and they currently occupy Sears spaces down in the Texas area, so we may be a real good fit for them.
That'd be excellent.
For them all, yeah.
I noticed they had dinosaurs out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Months ago.
Yeah.
I missed that. Anyway,
Pull out all the stops. Whatever you gotta do to get business over there.
I interrupted you, or you?
No, that was all. Yeah, and again, they are in the business of moving into those Sears spaces. But I remember that, it wasn't Dave and Buster's, but it was something and something that was moving into the Montgomery Ward spaces some years ago. And they didn't last long. So we'll see how that happens. But
Monkey Ward Trail. All right.
Old lunch counter.
Monkey Wards. There you go. Item number 2, discussion of fiscal year 2023-24 budget. That could take a while.
yeah, we're and Kim is here, Jacob is here, but we're receiving the request for next year's budget, and we will have our management retreat the first Friday in March. So all of those forms are coming in from the various departments. They're doing a really good job of justifying their requests. We have historically had that management retreat and then prioritize things for the city manager's proposed budget to the council that comes forward in April. One thing that we didn't get a chance to talk about on Tuesday when we had the Capitol retreat was this large request that's coming in from the IT department. Basically, this happens every 5 years or so when Microsoft, I call it planned obsolescence,
Yes.
where they are basically saying that they're going to stop supporting Windows 2016. And so we're having to, and this is hundreds of thousands of dollars, where we're going to have to replace our Microsoft Office suite. And so just know that that's going to be a high dollar request that's going to come forward that we're really going to have to do and have to consider.
Yeah. Our reality in the exposure to naughty people trying to hack into your software nowadays, which seems to be a regular occurrence. Once Microsoft stops supporting it, it does provide space for the naughty people to go seek out everybody who didn't upgrade and go after them, because they will be a little more helpless in the water without that Microsoft support behind them. So usually in our staff meetings, when we go around and talk about what's going on in everybody's department, the conversation with IT is, okay, Tim, scare us. What do and that's it. Really is kind of that level of attention, because each one of our departments operates elements of our software suite. And we may have 500 employees that touch hardware that gets into our server at any given day, and any one of them is capable of hitting a link or opening an email that is suspect, and boom, we're exposed. So everybody pays real close attention when Tim's talking to make sure we're doing everything we can do to protect our investment in technology.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, like I've been saying for a while, I've considered IT to be a tripod of public safety, if you will, apparatus because of how serious it's become. I just read about, just this week, the city of Oakland being hit by a ransomware attack, a real significant one as well. Says all their functions are intact, but that's, a big city right there.
You can imagine
we
how
all know about
robust their
Atlanta.
IT department is.
Yeah, Atlanta, Charlotte are just a couple other ones I recall off the top of my head of cities that have been hit pretty hard or have had those types of issues. But, I mean, it says right here, Oakland declares state of emergency after when it happened, I guess. So I definitely think it's going to continue to be a matter of serious
Well, they
concern.
were emails, remember, they were, whatever it's called,
Yeah,
mimicking me.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And doing
Yeah.
that.
I need to talk to you. Don't call me, email me or something. It's like, okay. It's urgent, but don't call me.
Those
Just email
emails that they spoof you are so funny because it's like so clearly not you.
Yeah, Larry with an IE instead of the Y kind of thing.
So, but it can be difficult too, because we get a lot of emails that are titled external email or spam, and it isn't always. It is sometimes a legitimate email, and even the the manager's weekly report comes across as external email sometimes, and
Yeah, and it's got links included in it to other places.
Yeah.
And usually, if our server sees links, it puts up a caution flag.
good. So.
Want to talk about budget things that are coming up that you see?
Yes, sir. You saw in your packet a lot of requests from the outside agencies. And when we say outside agencies, what we're talking about here are those agencies that are getting ongoing support from the general fund. Now, this is external to some agencies that might also be getting United Way money or might also be getting CDBG money. But over the years, those agencies have been getting general fund support. And so we kind of highlight those for your information. We have invited those agencies that have requested an increase to their general fund support. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't come. But in particular, the Firehouse Arts Center, the Santa Fe Depot, and the Historical House Museum have requested increases in fiscal year '24. So we did want them to come and justify those increased requests. But I won't speak to them because they didn't come to justify those increases. So as we move forward into the '24 budget process, the city manager's budget will consider those increased requests. And those agencies that are kind of steady state, if you will, requesting the support from the general fund that they have had in this fiscal year '23, and make recommendations to you about whether they want to, whether we want to approve those requests, and then ultimately, of course, council will have the final say. But that's what's before you this afternoon.
Well, I've got nothing against giving away to charity by any means, but I think we need to be discerning in that. Things like Firehouse, things like the depot that we started, basically, I understand it's ones other than that. But I think there'll be a lot of discussion as to, is that the best use for public money, basically? It may be. Maybe there's no other way of getting money. But it would be nice to have some background from them, input from them, as to what they are getting from United Way and what they are getting from other foundation, maybe foundation, ICCCFI in there and stuff like that. I think those would be some good discussions. Yes, ma'am.
I guess to that point, how can you maybe talk about how the agencies that are listed here came to be getting support from the city? So obviously the ones that are identified here, as city-owned. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I understand those, but to the mayor's point about some of our other nonprofits that are getting money directly through, and then, how are those considered, and how would other agencies come forward for consideration? I'm just interested in that process.
Yeah, historically, the city-owned facilities, the Firehouse Arts Center, the Historical Museum, the Sooner Theater, had city-funded personnel. And where they had those positions, that the cost of those positions was increasing, the city wanted to basically cut their budget and kind of cut out those positions from the city's general fund budget. So basically what we had done, and this has been 10 or 12 years ago, was instead of funding those positions, we funded an amount of money for those agencies, and kind of froze the amount of the positions at the amount of funding that we had in the general fund budget for those positions. And so over time, they would have to foot the cost of the increase in those positions from their own internal budgets. So that's historically what happened with those agencies. The social and voluntary services had a historical set aside in the general fund for those agencies. It increased exponentially over the last 10 or 12 years, really starting with Mayor Rosenthal's tenure. We increased them exponentially, and from $175,000, which was an increase in fiscal year '21, to $250,000 in fiscal year '22. They are requesting $225,000 in '23, and staying at that level in '24, at least as a request. The Veterans Day Parade, they're just requesting their insurance to be covered, and that insurance cost has increased. That's what you see as their request. And again, I won't really speak to CCFI or to the other agencies, but just they requested support from the general fund some years past, and continuing in fiscal year '24 as a request. And what those things are for varies by the agency, but it's just to food pantry here, insurance there, programs there, and it's differing for each agency. I can't really speak for them, but again, we invited them to come if they had an increase. We didn't invite them where it's kind of steady state, but again, it's just a question of if council wants to continue that general fund support of those agencies.
In your packet, there are some justifications for the increase in how those funds are used also.
Yeah, but I guess my point is that they requested funds and then were considered by council, and then now they have a historic, I guess, precedent of being funded. But there really is no, I guess, like any other agency could come forward and request funds from our general fund. Is that basically what we're saying? And then we would have the discretion to fund them or not out of the general fund?
Yeah,
Okay,
we
but that's
usually
how they
have
did
had,
it.
we usually have had a 501c3 requirement, and certainly that's the case with the social and voluntary service agencies. But other than that, just yet, we're coming to council for requesting general fund support, and that's really
Discretionary.
discretionary.
Yeah, where
That's a good word.
would someone send a request? Would that be to the city clerk, to the city manager,
It'd
to?
be to the city manager.
Yeah,
really.
and it happens, I mean, they could walk up to the podium under public comment and say, I'm the CEO of this 501c3, and we'd like to, you to consider us in terms of supporting our mission for the good of the community, and, we could take direction from council. So there are lots of different ways if somebody sent me such a request, you would get it, absolutely.
Yeah, just curious about how we're seeing this and how they came to be.
Yeah, and I don't think we've had any new ones in the recent.
Not in the last 2 or 3 years. We haven't had any new ones. There have been some new ones coming through the social and voluntary services.
Would just note too that this total amount, what's our general fund in our most recent budget?
About 80
80
million.
million, so is that even a percent? Is it a
It's less than a percent for any
total of what we're
individual of
spending on
them.
all of this is less than a percent of our total budget? And for social and voluntary services, 225,000 is like a micro of a percent, I don't even know. It's all money, and we have lots of needs in the city, of course, so I think every dollar matters, how we spend it for sure, but I think it's a lot less than what I think maybe some in our public have the impression that we spend on this type of stuff. It's not very much compared to a lot of other cities.
And I don't know, I'm not aware of agencies that have policies, like a policy statement on this subject. But I'm gonna reach out to Oklahoma Municipal League and say, hey, any of you guys out there have a policy on, a process or an amount not to exceed a percentage of the budget or things like that. Yeah, that would just give council some guidelines to say, well, if you meet this criteria and there's this much slack in the rope, you'd consider it, and if not, you don't. But yeah, I'd give you a policy to rely upon that would be council adopted.
I would note too that during my time on council, when we've had some more lean budget years, where we were very concerned about how it was going to play out. When we have asked previous city manager give us a list of what would need to be cut. These are all on there every single time.
Yeah.
So they're always the first consideration to be cut.
And I will say, there's some
Thankfully, yeah.
agencies that have been here in the past that are not here now. The holiday parade, the Mardi Gras parade used to be on here, and they're not here anymore. So just note that we have weaned off some of them.
They're doing it on their own now.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
That to me is a good way to start a charity, is to help them get on their feet, get going, get your volunteers, and get your donations.
I see Jason kind of wincing there. And so just know that some of those agencies, some of those events have been picked up by the Parks Department. So.
Okay.
So you're,
So the city's still paying.
Definitely winning in the socks.
Just not out of this
Category today. Well played, well played.
I forgot my sunglasses. All right. Further discussion on budget process? Oh, I'm
I actually
sorry.
still have a question about that. So I'm just looking in the increase column. It's like Veterans Day parade's like $80. I was trying to find out less.
In parentheses means less.
Okay, so what is the?
There was during COVID, it was a little bit more to insure it, and then we saw that price decreased back.
Okay, that's where the parentheses was. Okay, so the 3,000 that, or no, I'm sorry, 60. What's the historical museum asking for? $3,000?
Yeah.
Okay, so then when you get into their 21, 22 expenses and their shortfalls and all that, how are you supposed to know, like, in the supporting documents?
We only know by what they ask, but
Well, I saw they had a shortfall last year, and it was like almost 8,000, and that they're only asking for 3,000 in that. So, yeah, it's just hard to parse out like what it's for and what they're asking.
You could always ask for an accounting. You look at their book if they wanted
Yeah.
something.
and for most of them, that's in your packet, and that's why your packet is huge.
Yeah.
You know, but just know that it's relatively a small amount of money, but it is outside of the historic, mission of the general fund. So that's why we put
I will add to those 4 agencies, we maintain their buildings, and that is not included in this cost. Those costs you see are probably a reflection of them paying staff or programs that they're trying to offer
And you're talking firehouse, the depot, the Sooner Theater,
in the historical house.
and the historical,
Yeah, roofs,
Not-
windows,
Yeah.
mechanical systems,
but
paint.
not CCFI, not the parades.
Correct, those are not sitting up there.
Yeah. Well, I guess just looking at their budget shortfall from last year, which was the negative almost 8K, like asking for 3K. So is it like they hope to get almost another half from somewhere else? Just, yeah. So anyways, will they come forward or like let us know, or is
No,
this it?
this is the
it.
usual time.
Okay.
yeah.
Good to know. That's it.
Yes,
I definitely, I mean, maybe we just have to go over there and talk to them ourselves, but I would like to know more about the firehouse request. 'Cause it looks like their budget is around 450,000 total, and so we're, contributing 60 to help out. But I would be interested to know more about, I guess if I read through their whole,
they have a
Deal they
real
sent us,
good
but
system because they can charge
how
for
it's-
classes.
right,
and they
yeah.
can do stuff like that and they can generate money.
but what's the justification for doubling our contribution? I would like to know for sure.
Was it all a shortfall or?
Right,
Yeah.
They got a new,
Especially because that's the biggest
CEO.
one.
Yeah, they have had a large request for an expansion to the facility several years ago. And that kind of was supposed to be a matching contribution. They didn't get their match, and so they kind of backed off of that. And again, Jason may have information that I don't. But I know that they kind of backed off that capital campaign. So they may be kind of wanting to increase their programs to offset that capital campaign.
Their request in the packet, it's on page 68, it says that due to COVID-19, state funding for the arts has been cut dramatically. We're not expecting additional federal relief funds. As such, Firehouse Arts Center requests $120,000 for operational expenses for fiscal year ending '24.
Good shot, Kim.
He says, mine's only got 25 pages, so I guess.
25 pages on the document, 'cause they're not attached in,
Okay. I missed
but yeah, I'm the same. I'm like, where, it's number 8 on
Okay.
Yeah, council,
On
you
page
recall,
6.
made an ARPA
ours.
distribution to the Arts Council. That went to a lot of these agencies, so I don't know if that's one of them, but I suspected it was.
Our house is one of those agencies that
United Way, is that what you said?
The Arts Council.
Any other questions on discussion of fiscal year budget 2023 and 24?
Not for me.
Not for you? All right, I guess we are adjourned.
All right.
Thank you, sir. And all. Except you and Scott.
That's what it said at the top of the stock.
It's-
Actually, I don't think-
Messing with my rods and cones, you know.
It was a Father's Day. 1 year for my kids.
You've gotta wear 'em.
I got a picture from my resident. You got it?
This is, you can have like a picture of the state. Come back, guys.
Socks is a true art form.